on and dropping these cases, unfortunately, they've been countersued by quite a few of the people that they've threatened. They've been countersued, and they can back down from the original claim, but they still have to face the countersuit, the malicious lawsuit accusation. So they still have to face that after throwing the original accusation at them. So, yeah.
Well, what we'll do, keeping on the subject of court cases as such and law, just a very brief mention of another Torrent Freak article, and a lot of them most of the Torrent Freak articles are very, very interesting, and this is another one. It's in regards to the anonymous DDoS attacks. Apparently there's been an arrest made in Sweden, I think.
No, it's in Holland. I think it's 16.
Beg your pardon? Yeah, 16-year-old, yeah. And he's been arrested on suspicion of an involvement in them. Of course, at the moment, it's just a suspicion of. We haven't got any proof, and there's no word on what exactly is being put against him. There's a very good article on Torrent Freak about it, including the chap's alleged handle on the RSC channel that was involved in these or related to these DDoS attacks, and so that was quite interesting. But the reason why I mentioned that is because it links quite nicely to another DDoS attack which took place at the Call of Duty servers. Basically, a teenager from Manchester has been arrested on Thursday morning, and it's because he's used a DDoS attack to destroy somebody else's online presence in order to win at the Call of Duty game. From what I believe, it was a utility designed specifically for this purpose. That gives you the upper hand on the game. But he's been arrested. Now, the reason I mention it is because a while ago, it must have been about 2 or 3 months, when the DDoS attacks started taking place with Anonymous, I did say at the time that under current UK legislation, the Computer Misuse Act of 1990, people using the LOIC or anything similar to that to execute these attacks could put themselves up on offer for a possible offence under that act. And I did warn people at the time that preferably should stay away from this whole this whole scenario, because obviously if you find yourself breaking this act, obviously you could be arrested. It's an arrestable offence.
Do you know that the program is downloaded in the UK almost as much as it's downloaded in the United States, which is the #1 nation in terms of downloads? Mm. And also it's a very nice case study for C#. It's not exactly the case study you want, but it is built using Microsoft software.
I thought I was under the impression, because I had very little to do. I followed the story of the LOIC because I was quite interested in what it was and what it was doing, and also I looked up the legislation in regards to the possible offences. This stuff was found in Google. I mean, it's not sort of hidden away or anything like that. It's pretty specific, the act that covers this type of behaviour. And from what I understood, the LOIC software was written in Java. I could be wrong. I'm sure I saw a reference to it being written in Java. But like I say, obviously I haven't been engaged in this little escapade, so I don't know. But I think the point was that obviously if you get involved in this type of activity, people can come after you. Now, as we've seen, this chap has literally effectively just used it to play a computer game. There's been no money involved as far as he's concerned, or as far as the allegation's concerned, but he's used it to get the upper hand on a computer game and has been arrested for it. Now, obviously, he's putting aside the rights and wrongs of that, and putting aside the rights and wrongs, he's a 17-year-old lad, apparently, from Manchester. The sheer act of what he's done, being a criminal offence, suggests to me that I would certainly recommend that everybody stays well away from any sort of organised attacks on websites and these type of campaigns. By all means, obviously support the causes you believe in, but maybe consider very carefully how you're actually going about supporting these causes. Because if you don't, you could find yourself up on offer.
I don't know the tool too well. As far as I know, it's actually not using any botnets or any of the computers surrounding you, so it's actually addressing a certain IP address of a company. Now, it's interesting because, first of all, you have these things like WinUX back in the 90s, so that kind of makes them an offense to just basically go on your friend's computer and exploit the bug to make the computer crash. which you could, by the way, do in recent versions of Windows. They had a similar type of bug. But more interestingly, if you're talking about harming a person's computer in any way, being an offense, you basically open up to all sorts of possibilities where even a person refreshing a page many times can be a violation. And I think it was sometime in the 90s when I was a lot younger that there was a case of a person, I think in a school, trying to demonstrate to fellow students how to make the server not respond. And basically it involved just sitting down there and just pressing F5 for refreshing the page and slowing down the server. And I think I'm not sure if it was punishment at a school level but the fact that just refreshing the page becomes an offense makes you think, obviously in this case, if they don't use somebody else's computer to do an attack, but they actually use their own computers to do the attack, then what's next? You have to be very careful here, because the next thing you'll say is you cannot offend people online, or you cannot say to people offensive things which might lead them to suicide, and that's what the case with what's her name? With the
Laurie Drew.
Yeah, I mean, sending people to jail is that they actually meant to have the other person commit suicide. So it's kind of dangerous. We have to be very careful what we consider to be acceptable behavior, and illegal behavior and so on. So some things are being impolite is not being against the law. And if Wikileaks leaks the things which some people find objectionable, or they don't really want to see that, it doesn't make it illegal unless there is a law against that.
No, but I mean, from my following of all these sort of stories on the net, and obviously looking up the relevant legislation and things like that, law is an interpretation, and it's open to interpretation. Now, you mentioned things like being insulting to people online. Now, there is offences that could be put to that. There's Telecommunications Act offences, there's Harassment Act offences, and whilst there isn't a specific piece of legislation that says you can't insult somebody on an internet forum, or you can't insult somebody on IRC, you have offences already in place which could facilitate, I say could and I underline that word, but could facilitate an allegation if it's made. Now, in the case of the Call of Duty, Activision have made an allegation to police from what the article says, and it's been looked at, and whoever has made the decision on obviously proceeding further with it has decided that yes, we have got an offence under the Computer Misuse Act. What I would say in regards to this, though, is that you can't commit a Computer Offence Act apparently if you're the BBC, and we only have to go back a few, I believe it was earlier this year when the BBC was running a botnet for one of its.
It was last year, to be honest.
Was it last year?
Let
me have a look. Yeah, sorry, 16th of March 2009 was when I wrote the article. Yeah, but apparently if you're the BBC, it's not an offence because they ran a botnet as part of one of their episodes of Click, I believe.
Yeah, but they're a big company, so that's kind of okay. If you're a big state, you do something unacceptable. You say we are a state and we are people and official. And it also relates to what happens with the New York Times and the smaller sites like Wikileaks, which basically do the same type of thing. But it's hard to try and go after the big guys because they.
Of course. Also, if you say that say that it was in the public interest to do it, that seems to also be a get-out clause as well, because it's one of the things that the BBC said at the time. They said the demonstration in regards to the botnet was very much in the public interest. We believe that as a result of the investigation, general computer users are now better informed, blah, 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 blah. So, obviously, if you do something in the public interest and you're the BBC, it seems to be not a criminal offence. So,
or you should make a screencast. If you do something illegal on the computer, just make a screencast and say, well, I was going to upload this and make it educational.
Yes, yeah.
Or that's defensive gear.
We jest, of course. Sorry, I was just saying. Go on, Roy.
Go on.
I was just going to say, for the benefit of the listeners, we jest, of course, and it is an offence, and I don't think doing something under the guise of the BBC would get you off any sort of allegation that's put against you if you did engage in this type of behaviour. So the best advice is to stay well away from any type of actions like botnets or DDoS attacks or anything like that. Could I just add, before Gordon comes in with his points, that staying on the subject of BBC Click and botnets and DDoS attacks, it seems that BBC Click, accurate as always, has claimed on their Twitter page that WikiLeaks have orchestrated the DDoS campaign, and obviously that's wrong. And it took BBC Click to be corrected by one of their viewers in order to rectify that a factual error. The only reason I mention that is I've been a staunch critique of BBC Click. I don't think it's a good program. I don't